You're listening to Let's Stay Together, a podcast about Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
And today we're discussing chapter 114.
Oh my god.
Woo! Only. Next time we're going to talk about 115 to 118, though, so it's going to be a big deal. For multiple reasons, I guess.
We're paying for your buck.
Yeah. 1 episode, 4 chapters.
No waiting.
So much content. Anyway, we're going to do our summary discussion and spoiler discussion like we always do. Let us do our summary of chapter 114. This chapter opens with an outline of what looks like Tohru and Kyoko superimposed over a watery texture with the narration, the feeling of leaving someone behind. And it trails off. A mystery. At Shishou's house, Kagura runs past him and tells him to pretend that she isn't here. He asks if she's playing hide and seek, and it soon becomes apparent why she hid. Tohru greets Shishou in the hallway. She sees the top of Kagura's head but pretends not to see her. Tohru smiles sort of bashfully and bows and leaves. Once she's gone, Shishou asks if Kagura is avoiding her because of a fight. I wish it was that simple, Kagura says. I just don't know how to face her right now. I'll make some face and end up feeling like I lost. I hate the thought of acknowledging that part of me, she shouts as she punches the door that she was hiding behind. Shishou smiles and says, that is complicated.
Taking the property destruction in stride.
Yes! The
He's
property
probably just like,
destruction...
this is normal.
Yes. He's like, oh, children. So nice to have children in the house or whatever.
Yeah.
Kagura wishes that she would hurry up and get with Kyo, and Shishou remembers Tohru asking how to break the curse earlier, and asks Kagura, then does she like Kyo? Of course she does, Kagura screams while punching through Shishou's door. It couldn't be any more obvious. At the very least, Kyo-kun likes Tohru-kun. Kagura notices Shishou frowning and asks if that bothers him. I'm just worried, that's all. It must be my age. I wonder if she loves Kyo as another human being and not out of anything as simple as pity, he says, and Kagura's eyes widen at the thought. Does that say Yet I Will Walk On? Tohru asks Rin about a drawing that she was so focused on creating she didn't notice Tohru come into her room. Rin slams the sketchbook shut immediately, and Tohru says it's amazing how she draws pictures. Rin says they're just scribbles, and that she's just killing time, and throws the sketchbook to the side. Tohru picks it up and cradles it to her chest. Pictures that are filled with your feelings aren't scribbles. Everyone is precious, she says. Rin looks annoyed, but blushes, and she takes the sketchbook back and sets it down and asks why Tohru came. Tohru says that she was rude when she left the other day, and we see a flashback to their argument, quote-unquote argument. I don't know if I classify this as an argument, but that's how it's described in the text. And the text never lies. I mean, their disagreement where Tohru revealed her concern for Kyo. Rin says that she doesn't care about that. I thought you didn't come because you didn't like people attacking him. Why Kyo? Why him of all people? She asks. He's the cat. You know what's going to happen to him, what his role is, how we all see him. You know all that, right? Is it sympathy? Rin asks. Tohru looks up. In the other room, Kagura repairs the door that she smashed, and Shishou tells her about his grandfather, the previous cat. He had a partner. She took care of him, bore his child, attended his deathbed. Someone once asked how she was able to do all of it for that thing. I remember her answer, Shishou says, and we see a memory. The woman says, well, I felt sorry for him. Perhaps she had beautiful intentions, and certainly my grandfather may have been much happier with her than had he spent his days alone, but, Shishou says and trails off, and Kagura stands and leaves the room. In the room with Rin, Tohru thinks about her conversation with Kagura at school recently. He says, and you seem to be doing okay too. I'm glad. She thinks, on my way home that day, my heart moaned. I was sad enough to cry. It was because I felt it again, the feeling of her fading away, changing into a memory. The loneliness, so terrible it tears me apart. The sadness. I don't forget those things, but I can't hold on to them as clear memories. No matter how much I gloss over it, no matter how much or how sincerely I promise, time marches on and they fade. It's so cruel. Tohru stands and clutches at her shirt nervously. Cruel? Could these selfish feelings be sympathy? She says out loud. How terribly sad, she thinks. It's too sad, and yet it won't stop. I mean, she says, I say I want to protect all the members of the Zodiac and I want to free them, but that's only justification. I'm hiding my true feelings, covering them up like a coward, she thinks. The Tohru that cared about Mom more than anything is becoming a memory, and it won't stop. She remembers meeting Kyo and him taking her hand, and she starts to cry. I don't want anything or anyone, not the Soul family, not the curse, to take Kyo-kun away from me, because Kyo-kun is the most important thing in my life. A teary-eyed Kagura runs in the room and slaps Tohru across the face, hard, knocking her back into the wall. Is that how you really feel? Then go and tell him that, she shouts. Rin's eyes widen and she grabs Kagura by the collar and pushes her back. Stop it, don't push your own logic onto Tohru, she says, and Kagura tells her to shut up. Do you honestly think that you have the right to hit her? Rin yells. Give me a break, do you think you have the right to hit her? Kagura hugs Rin. I'm sorry, she says, and Rin looks overwhelmed and distant. Hearing the commotion, Kunimitsu comes in and checks on them and notices Tohru has fainted and freaks out, and so does Kagura. In Toru's passed out inner monologue, she remembers speaking to Kyo through the sheets about her father. She thinks that back then she might have been testing Kyo, looking for an excuse to put the lid back on her feelings. She showed him something dirty about herself. If he hadn't accepted it, she would have had a way out. And she remembers her mother in the hospital. I feel like I'm betraying my mom, she thinks, and that really scares me. It makes me depressed and ashamed. I'm so unfair, so weak, so dirty. She remembers Kyo's words from that day. It's okay, it's not going to disillusion me or anything. In the present, Tohru slowly opens her eyes. Kyo is sitting beside her. He smiles and asks how she's feeling. She blushes and says his name. So you had a fight with Kagura? And you even fainted, he says. Shishou called me to tell me, but it still took me a while to believe it. Are you okay? Seriously, I know she packs a punch. Oh, the fight, Tohru says, sitting up suddenly. Earlier we were just, I don't know the details and I won't bug you about it, Kyo says resolutely, remembering Shishou's advice that men shouldn't interfere in fights between women, and when they do, they pay the price, which is demonstrated in an adorable chibi panel.
The baby Kyo being like, oh.
She's so smiling his, like, sagely smile and has his finger raised, like, never interfere in fights between women. It's very funny and cute. Also probably good advice. I don't know. Yeah. Don't interfere in a fight between anyone.
Yeah.
Toru's like, oh, I see. Kyo asks if Tohru will make Kagura apologize. Tohru touches her scuffed cheek, and she says it's all right. They're both at fault. That's why I won't apologize either, she says. It doesn't matter what I do. It's not like all the inferiority will go away, she thinks. In another room, Kunimitsu comes to tell Kagura that Kyo and Tohru are leaving. I don't plan to apologize, thank you very much, Kagura tells him. He points out that she apologized to Rin, and Kagura claims that she and Tohru had a mutual agreement with their fists, and Rin points out that she was the only one hitting. Men are lucky, Kagura pouts. They can trust other people with their dreams and wishes and things. She just steps into the room as she continues, looking back over her shoulder with tears in her eyes. I mean, honestly, those feelings are nothing like sympathy. They're not fake. I can trust her. Wow, that's stupid, Rin says. This is why you annoy me. Comfort me, Kagura says, burying her face in Rin's shoulder. Are they getting along better or what? Kunimitsu asks in the background as Shishou smiles. Outside, Kyo and Tohru walk home together. Tohru starts to thank him for coming to get her, and he immediately tells her not to worry about it. She thinks of Kagura's forceful encouragement to tell Kyo about her feelings and clenches her fist, but the words won't come out. She shakes her head and thinks, I need to be brave. Tohru looks back down the street behind her and over her shoulder and imagines her mother, standing looking at her, face sullen, the same image of her mom from the beginning of the chapter. After a moment of panic, the apparition is gone. Kyo notices that she stopped. What, did you forget something? He asks. She looks back the other way toward him as he worries after her. I need to be brave, she thinks, and her expression relaxes. No, she says. She smiles and blushes, and then she closes the distance between them. The chapter closes on her thoughts. I won't close the lid. I know this won't stop anymore. The end. Dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. I don't know. Is it a dun, dun, dun? Maybe. I guess we'll have to wait till next time to find out.
That's why I only give it 2 duns.
Dun, dun. I like it when it's not just like dun dun dun, but it's like dun dun dun. You know, like really dramatic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? None of this is vague in any way. It's like when I was trying to explain to Jane that I was singing the Sailor song, that dee 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 dee, and it's like I'm glad you understand what I'm talking about through text and not me having to sing it somehow to you. Anyway, this chapter, I was like, it's going to be weird for us to talk about this as a one-off, but I think there was a lot going on that we can discuss. I was surprised.
Yeah, as I said, I was taking notes. I was like, there's a lot in this chapter, actually.
Yeah, there's actually a lot.
Yeah. A lot of meat.
Yeah, which is good. It's the next part is completely unrelated. I mean, it's like, you know, in the gist of the rest of the story, it's all related, but it's completely unrelated to this thing that's happening right now. So it's good to just talk about it by itself, I think. But yeah, there's a lot that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Should we just go from the top?
Sure.
Sometimes I go through these by like, okay, let's talk about this character was the focus. Let's talk about this first. Like that's, in case anyone's wondering how the wheels turn on this podcast. Yeah. Sometimes it's not completely random. I mean,
so in case you're wondering how the wheels turn, they don't.
They don't.
They just kind of skid off to the side, like when you see a bicycle crash in a TV show.
Like the bike just like...
the one wheel comes rolling back across the screen.
I was thinking like they show the bike and the front wheel's still spinning or whatever. The bent wheel is still spinning slightly. Yes. Okay, I want to go from the top because there's a lot that happened. So at the beginning, Kagura was already hiding from Tohru, which I think is hilarious and interesting. So I guess we haven't seen Kagura for a long time. I don't even remember the last time what chapter she was in.
She had the one appearance at the end with Rin where she was like, "Let's stay up all night and argue," but
oh, I meant like
but I don't know when her last like serious chapter was.
It couldn't have been the double date. It was, I mean, I guess she was there like New Year's, but I'm trying to think of a time where like she and Tohru were together.
Yeah, I don't know about Tohru. I think we had her.
Oh, well, there's all her Kyo stuff.
Yeah, I was like, didn't we have her chapter with Kyo recently? But
that would have been more recent.
Yeah,
probably. It's more recent than the double date. Yeah, for sure. But I'm kind of like, I mean, I guess there's time, there's things that happen that aren't shown, perhaps. But I'm just like, how does she know how to... Well, and maybe Rin brought it up. Maybe somebody brought it up to her. But
I think by showing, like, Kagura frequently interacting with Rin and knowing that, like, Rin is BFFs with Tohru, there's, like, implications that they've, interacted in the meantime.
Even Rin can know the warmth of friendship.
Of a BFF. She's like, IDK my BFF Tohru.
Haru got them secret BFF bracelets.
Yeah.
And he like snuck half of it into Rin's pocket, but he gave the other half to Tohru and was like, "Rin, this is for you from Rin," and she freaked out.
Yeah.
And wears it all the time. Anyway, yeah. Maybe that's how she found out. Maybe that's why she doesn't want to see her. He already knows that there's a developing situation between Kyo and Tohru. Although that was also revealed during her thing with Kyo, where Kyo was like, "I can't be with you anymore," I don't know. I mean, he never really wanted to see her that way in the first place, but
yeah.
Perhaps she gathered from all these things. But she's hiding it up front, which is interesting. And then she has this conversation with Shishou where more is revealed about the cat, the previous cat.
Yeah.
It's after the part with Rin, but they have this... I feel like what happens is Shishou tells her about, and we thusly learn about, the previous cat, and kind of like, it is... I guess if you never think about... Shishou's like, my grandfather was the cat, and if you stop and think about that for 5 minutes, you're like, but the cat is isolated, so like, how do you end up having the cat having a child, and all this other stuff, so... Yeah. He explains that, in case anybody was wondering. He had a woman who visited him and attended his deathbed even, which is a lot. So, and yet says that she did it all out of pity.
Yeah.
And almost like inceptions this idea in Kagura's head that Tohru is doing all this. Tohru cares about him out of pity.
Yeah. It's also interesting that he refers to it as like my grandfather had a partner rather than like calling her his grandmother, even though she obviously is.
Or like my grandfather had a wife.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. Shishou could have a whole backstory as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure his family life was probably partially fucked up too.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like, I don't know, disdain for like children of the cat too.
I don't know, maybe. I mean, Shishou, we talked a long time ago about how Shishou is very respected, it seems, by the family. And that they all kind of like freaked out when he took Kyo in as well. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure like how he ended up having that position in the family. But probably not because of his grandfather, I would guess. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the child of the cat probably saw some, at the very least, bitterness and teasing from other people in the family, if not more. I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, it's an interesting thing that we learn, and he tells Kagura about that.
Yeah.
So could be something that you didn't know, actually.
It seems like it. It seems like he's like telling it for the first time.
Okay, so that's one thing that's happening. Is this conversation between Kagura and Shishou, and Kagura fixing the door, which is also hilarious. We never started a property damage counter for Shishou's house, but we should have, because didn't we make a joke about that a long time ago? The other thing that's happening is Tohru's visiting Rin. So Tohru goes in and Rin is drawing, which is cute. Her talent revealed.
Yeah. For like immediately reflexively slamming the sketchbook shut when Tohru shows up.
That's a feel that I know.
Yeah.
I mean, but I like how she was also so absorbed in it that she didn't notice Tohru come in. So like, the panel is just like Tohru leaning over and being like, "Oh, does that say this thing?" And then she slams it shut. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
and like,
kind of cute.
She also throws it away.
Yeah.
You know.
It's kind of cute because we've seen, like, in the past, she's talked about how, like, she doesn't relax around other people. Like, how like she only ever, like, can fall asleep when, like, Haru's there and stuff.
She was like, nobody could have touched me. It had to have been Haru.
Yeah.
It's like,
so her being
nobody
like,
can watch me draw but Haru.
Yeah, so it's kind of sweet. Like, it kind of implies that she's comfortable enough with Tohru now that she's become a presence she can, like, not pay that much attention to.
Mm-hmm. It's very cute.
Yeah.
BFFs! They're BFF bracelets! I do enjoy how she also, like, throws the notebook away. She throws the sketchbook away and Tohru picks it up. He's like, no, the things that you make have value. You know, very sweet. Take a little moment to, again, be a good friend and a good, kind person.
Yeah. Validate your friends.
Validate your friend. Yes. PSA?
Yes.
But yeah. And then Rin takes it from her delicately and sets it down instead of throwing it away or anything.
Yeah.
So it was nice, a nice little interaction between them. And then it's interesting that, like, so Tohru comes to, I guess, essentially apologize or whatever for being rude. And then Rin is like, I don't give a shit. But also, why? You know? So she wasn't offended by the argument.
Yeah, I also like if she's like, I thought you were just staying away because you didn't want people, like, trash-talking Kyo. Like,
yeah, he didn't like people trash-talking Kyo.
Yeah.
Which she probably doesn't. But, you know. But no, and then this is Rin. Tohru finally answers Rin's question. Actually, Rin was like, what's the most important thing to you? And she couldn't answer. And now she's finally able to say that. There's a lot of interesting things that I feel like happened in Tohru's dialogue and inner monologue in this chapter. But I want to kind of go through everything that happened first, and then I want to talk about her, I think. Yeah. So Tohru says all of these things, which I want to talk about after. But she reveals all these feelings. Then Kagura comes in, slaps her so hard that she falls back and hits her head and faints. Tohru, let me, as one person who had a concussion to someone who clearly has a concussion. Kyo's like, are you sure you're okay? It's like, she's not okay. Yeah. Listen, I have reality issues with this. It's just personal scarring. But yeah, so she passes out for them, and then Rin. We talked a lot, I think, in the spoilers recently about the Rin and Kagura sort of confrontation. There's a secondary confrontation that happens where Rin is like, "What the hell? You can't just like hit people," and they argue about that. Yeah. And then Kagura apologizes, which is a strangely touching scene. Also, I think. Yeah,
I like that because it's like it clearly like triggers Rin. Like
she has the like small pupil eyes.
Yeah, like
that Takaya draws.
Yeah, like in the classic meaning of triggered, like legit.
Yes.
Like,
it is a legitimate trigger. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say.
And like just because and also like the stuff she says, she's just like freaking out and like repeating stuff. She's like give me a break, give me a break. You think you have the right to hit her? You think you have the right to hit her? Like
hit her?
Yeah.
She's known to do that when she freaks out. She did that when she freaked out to Tohru. So.
And then like you can see like Kagura like instantly realizes like what the problem is and just like hugs her and apologizes. It's just pretty sweet.
Kagura is the kind of character, you know, her boorish tendency is to just do things without thinking about that, just act without thinking.
Yeah.
Right? So she is frustrated with the way that Tohru's acting and physically takes that out on her. And then only afterward realizes the impact.
Yeah.
On Rin and Tohru. She's like, oh crap, I didn't mean to hit her that hard. Like, that's all Kagura's deal, right? Which we don't get to see a lot of her, you know, involvement in this story that much, but it's interesting to kind of bring her back and see that she still has these same sort of like traits and issues essentially.
Yeah.
And then everyone decides not to apologize. The end.
Yeah. Let's
talk about Tohru and her dialogue. I want to spend time talking about this. And her passed out inner monologue.
Yeah.
she wakes up and she's like, was I asleep? I just recently listened to the episode where Rin had her freak out. This is it, because we were just talking about it. And she wakes up and she's like, was I asleep? And we were like, no, you passed out. Just reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Anyway. So some of the things that Tohru said that were interesting to me. So one thing that she said, she sort of like previously in her dialogue, it says like, I can feel her fading away, like my mom fading away. The memories of my mom's becoming a memory. And one time I think in this dialogue she says the Tohru that cared about mom more than anything is becoming a memory. So it's now like something that she's realizing about herself. It's not like she's forgetting her mom. It's like she's changing. And that's what she realized, I think, is, you know, like it's not that she can. And then she has these other interesting things that she says, like almost like she was trying to hold on to the feelings around her mother's death, where she's like, you know, the loneliness, the sadness, they're fading away. Those are becoming memories, as opposed to something like, I'm losing the happy memories of my mother or something. I feel like it's a really interesting thought.
Yeah, it's like she's been like trying to like make herself hold on to the grief.
Yeah.
Like feeling like if she forgot the grief, she was like betraying her mom in some way.
Yeah. I don't think we had an explanation like that earlier in the series. In terms of her thoughts and her like inner monologues and dialogue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. It's deeply sad, but very interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, because I mean, I think that's a thing people do, where like if they like have some like feeling of happiness after something horrible has happened, they feel guilty about it, even though it's normal to, you know, eventually move on from grief. I mean, that's, you know, the last stage of the this grief
Acceptance.
stages. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's sort of feels like without realizing it, she's letting go of those feelings, and that's what bothers her.
Yeah.
And she said the reason that she cried wasn't because of like she remembered her mother or remembered that Kagura was an asshole to her. It was because she felt the feeling of those things slipping away.
Yeah, because like the thing in this chapter that she remembers him saying is the like you look like you've been doing like
you're doing better.
Like she's like, no, I can't.
I can't be doing better.
Yeah.
I promise to never be doing better.
Yeah. And her mom's like, dude, no.
No.
Don't promise that.
And the hallucination, and she's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can be happy. That's what a ghost sounds like, right?
Yes. Rattling some chains. Move on.
Yeah. Swinging a like lead pipe threateningly in her like denim jacket. Get over me. It paints a very clear picture of what's been going on. I think this is the culmination of, and we're about to move on from this, which is why I think it's good to talk about this chapter and then all the subsequent ones, where she's like, I know that I can't change that I'm moving on from this, that I feel I'm starting to. The pain that I felt is ebbing.
Yeah.
And we're about to see a shift. So it feels like a good endpoint. But then yet her mom, so the chapter is flanked. The beginning has this sort of like the feeling of being left behind, where it has her mom, and then it's the exact same thing at the end of the chapter. That's the way that she imagines her mom standing in the alley behind her, looking sort of like dejected and sullen. But then the sort of like resolution from that is like, I know there's nothing I can do, and that you know, things are going to move on.
Yeah, it seems like she still feels guilty about it, but has kind of like accepted that she can't like hold on anymore.
Yeah.
In that way, which is why she says like, I have to be brave at the end.
Yeah, brave about feeling guilty or whatever, I guess. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
I understand
sort of
intrinsically.
like, it's kind of like I have to face and accept this, that, you know, this, I'm changing as a person and moving on, even if I'm scared to do that.
It's a powerful thing to recognize. Her sentiment in this chapter, I feel like I recognize, you know, like I identify with it. I think it's hard to, when your worst enemy is yourself.
Yeah.
And to admit that, right?
Yeah. And we talked about like characters like who are self-aware and becoming self-aware like in this series several times, and I think it's kind of a theme. A theme of like characters kind of identifying like what their issue is before they can like really address it.
Well, the first step is admitting it.
Yeah.
Right. So
and I liked we briefly talked about it, but Kagura like at the end saying like, I can trust her about Tohru's feelings, I think is pretty interesting. Like we've seen her like when way back at the beginning when they first met, where she had like an initial kind of like jealous reaction, but then like,
it's true,
you know, wound up like getting along with Tohru now, but still having kind of a, you know, her competitive thing with her like relationship with Kyo, but at this point she's like I can trust her to like her feelings are genuine and she'll take like good care of him, basically. Like
and I feel like Shishou kind of acknowledges there's an interesting panel that was really hard to describe, so I just didn't in my summary, where it's like his face when Kagura is saying those things. He has this like very serious expression. Let me pull up the text. Let's try to describe it now. It's sort of like concerned, but then in the next scene he's kind of smiling. So
I feel like
it's kind of like realization.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a like I hope I can too kind of expression. Like
it does look sort of like trepidatious.
Yeah. Like I feel like he's like I don't think he's suspicious of Tohru. I think he's just wary and protective of Kyo.
He's a good dad.
Yeah. So
everybody
like
wants their children to be happy.
Yeah. And so like I think like, you know, Kagura's declaration like made him like maybe like move toward being like this is fine, but also like still being a little wary of it. Like I hope this turns out well, kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's a good way to interpret it because it's not very clear.
Yeah.
How he feels. It definitely doesn't look happy though. He doesn't look relieved.
Yeah.
Kagura's like, I've definitely lost and I have 100% faith in this person. I like how she says like men can trust each other with their, or whatever, guys can trust each other with their feelings and hopes and wishes and stuff like that. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you know? But like, I guess what she's saying is like, what she says is that she thinks Tohru is genuine. So that's the important takeaway, I guess.
Yeah. I do love her, like, shonen manga. We have an understanding with our fists.
And Rin's like, you were the only one who hit.
Yeah.
And Kunimitsu's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, it's really funny. He's like, I was the one who made sure that she was still alive.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Kunimitsu's like, I'm the only good child in this household.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a good place to get knocked out is probably a dojo. It probably isn't the first time that happened.
Yeah.
They're probably well trained in first aid.
Yeah. Especially if they're training like Kagura and
Yes.
Kyo and people like that.
Haru.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And Yuki, theoretically. Yes.
I do love how everyone just goes to Shishou's house to like vent their emotional problems.
He's not a cool dad. He's a regular. Or he's not a regular dad. He's a cool dad.
Yeah.
I ruined my own joke. As usual. I mean,
he's like, it's like, you guys need snacks, condoms.
When she brings the drinks, I forget. He's like, you guys keep me young.
Yeah.
Keeps in there dancing to Milkshake. You know. Obscure Mean Girls references.
I feel like we've aged ourselves many times on this podcast.
I feel like that's not even that bad. I feel like we've definitely done older
worse.
things too. Amy Poehler is a queen. Everybody knows that. It's a timeless actress. Any other non-spoilery things that we should talk about? Any other cute things?
No, I do have something.
Okay.
I think the specific wording in part of like Toru's like inner faint monologue, the part where she's talking about how like she said like that maybe part of me was testing Kyo. I showed him how dirty I am. If he hadn't accepted me after that, I would have put the lid back on everything. Is like a really strong parallel to the true form arc.
It's a good point.
With the whole thing where like they talk about like if the whole idea that like if Tohru had like turned away at that point, he like never would have come back or any of that.
And he was like, she's like, I'm gonna show you the the thing I feel like the most guilty about, the thing that's like the worst about myself. And he's like, I'm going to hurt you so badly that you won't come back.
Yeah.
Like, Tohru comes back and Kyo and their conversation is like, it's okay, I won't, whatever you do is not gonna change the way I think about you.
They're both just like the other person just accepting them after they've shown their like what they think is their worst side.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's what they think is their worst things about them.
Yeah.
So the things they're most insecure about.
Yeah.
And she's like, I would have used it as an excuse to run away from this feeling. But you're out of options. You just have to accept that you're in love.
Yep. It's too bad it backfired. That person accepted you. Accepted the hell out of you.
Accepted the hell out of you. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do now with your perfect relationship, huh?
You going to confess? Going to live happily ever after?
I guess we'll find out sometime. There's like how many chapters left? 20-ish?
Yeah,
I should
I don't
know.
know. We're on volume 20. We just started volume 20, and it ends with volume 23,
23.
which is a truncated volume.
We have 10 episodes left, so whatever that means in chapters.
I hate my volume 20. This is the one I bought used like years later because I realized suddenly that for some reason I didn't have volume 20. And the
so random.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. And the pages are like orange. It's like, how did that happen? It looks like a book from like the 1800s, like
stored directly in the sun.
Yeah, facing not the spine, the pages.
Yeah, facing out. Yeah. Someone put it backwards in the Borders shelf, and then it stayed there.
Yeah, for like 50 years apparently.
Yeah. Well, time actually moves a different speed inside of Borders. Yeah. I don't know if you know that, but that's part of why they failed as a company. Yeah.
You're like, no, you don't understand. For our time, our earnings are great.
It's only been 20 human years, but in Borders years, it's been 99. Well, the good news is we're going to cover this volume in 3 episodes.
So you don't have to look at it very long.
No. Only not next episode, but next episode, then we'll be done with 20.
It's also got a like crack down the spine that makes the pages want to fall open to a certain page.
What were they doing? What did they do to your book? Did it fall out of the shelf and then get bent? Someone stepped on it and it got bent open, and then they were just like, oopsie boopsie, and put it back on
backwards.
The shelf indirectly. Yeah. Yes. In the future, no one will understand any of the references we're making because all shopping will be online.
They're like, what are books?
They'll never leave their house again. It's like so we study like history of like information design. I took a history of information design class with my art degree skills, and the first thing you study is like a codex, and we're like, what the fuck is a codex? Or like the scrolls, where you had to open a scroll, and a codex was better. Yeah. We're like, yeah. And like books will be like, but you can just Command F in a PDF. Why would you need a table of contents in a book? Anyway. Again, dating ourselves, I feel like. Okay. I want to talk about some spoilers.
All right.
Shall we do that?
Yeah, let's.
Okay. Next time, 115 to 118. It's going to be a big chunk. It'll be a good time.
Party.
Yeah, woo. Not a regular podcast host, a cool podcast host. All right, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
It's like, if you're going to drink, I'd rather you do it in the podcast.
I can't think of any more. All we do is make her face smell like a foot. Anyway, okay. Did we say goodbye? Probably not. We have a bad habit of having tangents right before we say goodbye. So. All right, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, we're back to have another tangent.
Yes.
I mean, talk about spoilers. I mean, probably. I want to talk about the very first panel.
Okay.
As a spoiler. So the reason, at first I thought it was young Kyoko and not Tohru. I stared at her bangs for a long time to decide who it was. Then I read the next chapter, and it's a good thing I did because the next one has an outline of Akito and Akira. So I'm pretty sure it's Tohru and Kyoko, and then that echoes the next chapter 115, the opening, is Akito and Akira, and it says, it's like, the feeling of leaving someone behind is what it says about what it says in Toru's chapter. And then the feeling of being left behind, which is what's in 115. So we have the great dichotomy between Tohru and Akito exposed in these, which is wonderful.
Yeah, we've talked about them as like foils in the past, but I think it really starts to get cranked up at this point of all the like parallels and stuff between Akito and Tohru.
I just think it's interesting the stuff that's coming up with Akira. Like, I don't have anything specifically interesting to say, but when you look back, it's kind of like, I wonder what influence Akira really had in the family and stuff like that. And then like what's coming, of course, is all this like conflict between Ren and Akira and what Akira said to Akito and Ren and the crux of all that issue.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, it's interesting, like where they have that direct parallel coming up, and like obviously like it like felt someone abandoned by Akira, and obviously it was like hanging on to that like relationship in kind of the same way that Tohru was hanging on to the relationship with her mother.
That's true.
And another thing this chapter made me think of is the like description of the relationship between Kazuma's grandfather and his partner and Ren and Akira.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, like Ren is obviously convinced that it was like true love, but like the way it's displayed is kind of like she's very just like, oh, like you poor thing, like nobody understands you, but I do. Like
Akira is an interesting character. I wish we could have had more scenes with him too, because he seems so aloof. Like even though he goes to the maids and he's like, no, Ren understands me or whatever. It's really interesting how we like we never really see his face. Like he has, I guess this is getting into a lot of stuff that's coming next time, but he has this sort of like ethereal quality that is even portrayed in the way that he seems to approach his relationship with Ren, or what we see of his relationship with Ren, where it's like he's just kind of there, like he's kind of also like floating around in an ethereal Kureno-ish way, sort of being like sadly in the background, and then trying to get Ren to interact with Akito. That's like the main thing that we see. Yeah, but he doesn't seem particularly attached to her, but it doesn't really seem particularly even attached to Akito, but like, you know, other than holding her, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's interesting. Seems like a weird character.
Yeah, well, he was like,
which says a lot about Akito,
well, it's shown like he had a very fleeting life and was pretty isolated for it. So
just like Akito,
because like it seems like it was known like from a young age that he was sickly and was gonna die young. So
they're like scrambling to find a person to produce an heir, essentially. Yeah, Ren does seem to have this sort of like delusion about their relationship. She's like, we were perfect, and you know, the only person who can be close to him is me, and all this other crazy stuff. Hyper possessive things. It is really interesting that an interesting point that you made, that Akito clings to her relationship with Akira like Tohru clings to her relationship with her mom. Yeah. Slightly different with the same negative impact in the end, I think. Which is, I mean, obviously why they're sort of foils, but
yeah, and like that. Yeah, that like reluctance to move on being like something that kind of hampers them for a while, and then them finally being able to let it go being part of what lets them grow as people.
Yeah, I always thought of them as being foils specifically because of like Akito wanting to keep the Zodiac together as a group, and Tohru wanting to sort of have the Zodiac, saying that she was to sort of like care for the Zodiac as a whole, right? And that and not wanting things to change with her mom specifically, and those things being the thing that kind of make them foils. But I think I never really considered Akito and Akira's relationship as being similar to Tohru and Kyoko's post-death, right? So interesting. I'm trying to think if there's anything else specific. It's like Kagura's not really coming back until that like one little sassy time with Momiji, but she's out. I feel like we had a couple chapters where it's like that's their last appearance for certain characters, right? Yeah. Like Komaki. I mean, it's her only appearance, I guess, for the most part. I mean, maybe there's a small thing, but nothing big. Same with Kagura. Yeah. Yeah. Rin has some other
She's
things.
Around. She just doesn't really do much after this point. Really, it's kind of the like conclusion of her deal. So.
There's no more chance of her being with Kyo, it seems. So.
Yeah, like we've seen her deal with her. We've seen her deal with her like
jealousy, I guess.
Her guilt before about like her relationship with Kyo, and able to like kind of air all that out with Kyo, and now this is kind of tighten up the last loose end for her.
Making sure that he's with someone who has genuine feelings of love. Also, next time is going to be this big confrontation where. So next time, Kureno's getting stabbed.
Yeah, I was gonna say I almost said it but we weren't in the spoilers yet. When we said party, I was gonna be like knife party.
Knife knife party. Shikuru's like, I wasn't actually gonna cut his guts open. Or Toru's like, I wasn't actually gonna cut his guts open.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's yeah. Knife party. Well, Ren is the one who brings the knife. So,
yeah.
Just everything gets out of
Yeah,
hand.
it's like Ren was going to stab Akito, then Akito was going to stab Ren, and then Akito did stab Kureno.
Yeah. You know, they say that, like, you shouldn't have a weapon if you can't handle it. You shouldn't have a weapon for self-defense if you can't handle it.
Yeah.
But then also, like, Hiro's curse is going to break and Momichi's curse is going to break. In these... This is all happening in 4 chapters.
Yeah.
Party!
Yeah, this is like...
Feather party!
Yeah, lots of feathers.
Yes.
Yeah, from here on out, it's kind of like everything happens so much. Like,
I know. So this next episode is going to be 4 chapters. The next episode is also going to be 4 chapters. Spoiler: people get the secrets.
Yeah.
Question mark. And then I don't know. I forget how I split them up, but like it's kind of a couple big chunks right now, so we need to do those, and then it's broken up sort of weirdly for the next rest of the series. So, but these are the big chunks.
Yeah.
This is the shoujo moment we've all been waiting for. Question mark.
With knives.
With knives. And terrible accidents.
Yeah.
Other various terrible accidents.
But yeah, it's like all this like action-y stuff kind of like happens all at once, and then it's like kind of just wrap up stuff after that, so it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah. It's the big
it's the climax and then the denouement.
Yes. Got a 1.5 volume denouement.
Yeah.
As they say. There's still a lot of things to be wrapped up though after, because it's like you have to have all these, like, Kyo has to visit his dad. Like there's still, these are the main issues. Like the main issues are Tohru getting over her mom, or like, you know, recognizing and moving on from the feelings of grief over her mother's death. And then Akito's struggle that's really based on the situation that happened between Ren and Akira and Akito. It's like not even really to do with the Zodiac. Like, it is kind of, but it's all related to her personal family issues, actually. So dealing with that, those 2 main issues are coming to a head in the next 8 chapters.
Yeah.
And then all the other things are fallout, as stated. So, denouement, as stated.
Yes.
I took a literature class.
Yeah, I was going to say it's educational using literary terms. In-depth literary analysis.
Themes and shit.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're professionals. Anyway. Cool. I don't have any other things that I want to talk about. We'll have a shit ton to talk about next time.
Yeah.
So, hope everybody's excited for that. Again, as always, bring snacks. Drink during the podcast, as Kayla stated.
Maybe bring Gatorade.
Gatorade. You gotta stay hydrated while you listen to the podcast. Bring Pedialyte if you're like one of the advanced people who understands. Anyway.
I think anyone's made like a cocktail with Pedialyte.
I 100% believe that people have made cocktails with Pedialyte. I don't even have to Google it. I'm sure it's a thing. I'm gonna Google it.
It's how you avoid the hangovers.
Pedialyte. There's an article that says Pedialyte cocktails. Why didn't we think this sooner? I don't think we said goodbye again. I think we had
It happens.
Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time for a long episode. 4 chapters. It'll be a good time. Long episode. long. That's a reference that everyone should get. And if you haven't, DM me and I'll just send you a video privately. It's fine. You don't have to admit to the world, but you need to see it. long episode. My favorite part is the ridiculous saxophone music in the background. And also the like building storyline.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Coming soon, our podcast about the Sakiragumi commercials.
My favorite is when the friend is like, they're the same.
Yeah. She's like, no. Okay, for real. Next time we'll talk about 115-118. We'll see you all then. Thanks for listening as always.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I switched it up. I'm sorry. I didn't give you a good cue. Hello, it's Ellen. If you want to send us a question, you can find us on Twitter at staytogetherpod, on Tumblr at staytogetherpodcast.tumblr.com, or you can send us an email at staytogetherpodcast@gmail.com. Kayla and I want to keep creating podcasts and keep them ad-free. So if you like what you're listening to, please consider giving to our Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/staytogethernetwork. Thank you always for listening and for all your support. We'll see you next time.